So in the last one of these tutorials, we looked at outputting all of the different elements. So we had our low poly barrel, we had our high poly barrel, and we took these out in as a different color just to get those so we could separate them out in Substance Painter. One thing to note about this, that the high poly is directly over the low poly. If it's not, if we have one, let's just grab one of these. If I click on my low poly, so if I have one somewhere else, it's not going to be able to break that information down because it needs to project from this directly onto the surface underneath. Okay, so just a point about that. So let's go into Substance Painter. So in Substance Painter, what I'm going to do is just go in, let's create a new, I'm just going to use an Unreal Engine 4, or we could use a PBR, Metallic Roughness. I'll stick with this for now. You can decide whatever you're going to take this into application wise and set an appropriate template. I'm going to, in the mesh, click on select, and then I'm going to bring in my low poly barrel, not the high poly. I've got no extra meshes. I'm going to use a DirectX because I'm Unreal 4, and I'm going to start at a document resolution of 2K. So just OK that. So there we have our barrel in there. And the first thing I'm going to do is go in to my texture set settings and bake textures. I'm not going to bake the ID for a second. I'm just going to bake everything else. Curvature, I'm just going to increase the details on this. My common tab, I'm going to load in my high poly. Clicking on this. I'm going to set some anti-aliasing on this 4 times. Okay. And then what I'll do is just bake. As this is baking, I will just pause this tutorial and come back to it when it's finished. It tends to lag at certain points, so around 85%. So I'll just pause for now. Okay, that's now finished, and I have all my textures baked. So I have my ambient occlusion, my cavity, my normal map, my position, thickness, and my world space normals on there. So I'm going to start off, and let me just bake the IDs as well. So I'm just going to bake textures again. Click off everything apart from the ID. I'm just going to go into the ID settings and set this to material color. And the reason I'm doing this separately is because I'm going to take the anti-aliasing off. I've just find that it can cause soft edges around the mask. So I'll take that off completely, and I'm just going to bake that. And that shouldn't take a second to do. So now I should also have my ID on this. It just looks like that. Okay. And now we're ready to start. So I'm going to go in. I'm just going to go into materials, and just to start off with a wood texture, I'm going to take this wood rough, but essentially, let me just delete this. Essentially, the only thing I'm going to use from this is the height and the normal information. I'm just going to set this to a triplanar projection, and I will just rotate this 90 degrees. So I have something like that. Okay, it's a little strong at the moment. So let me just go in. I'm going to take the roughness up. Let's go into the technical parameters. I'm going to take down the normal intensity. Take down the height range just to make this a bit more subtle. Turn it down. All this is coming from the normal intensity. Let me just bring this up. And actually I can take my height map off there. Okay, that's fine. So I just wanted to get that wood grain from there, nothing else. If you still find that this is too strong, we can just go up to our normal map channel on this, and we could turn that down there as well if we need to. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do, let me just put this in. This is my wood grain. And let's put in the NRM for normal. I'm going to create a new paint layer, and I'm just going to give this a color. Now I do have some images on my other screen, and let me just bring these across actually. So I just have some oak kind of textures, and what we can actually do with this is grab some colors from this as well. Bring this over a little bit, and let me just grab this back. Might be a little bit awkward. That's why I've got this on another monitor. Okay. So I'm going to take this onto my other monitor, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my base color. Actually, on the color swatch, I'm going to get my color pipette, and I'm just going to drag it over to this image on the other side, and I'm just going to grab one of these colors. Okay. So I can get a starting color on that. Okay. I'm going to ignore my roughness for now on this. I'm just going to really work on the base color. So I need a bit of variation in this. Let me just call this base color. I'm going to do another fill there. Okay. This time I'm going to use a procedural. I'm going to get just a procedural texture and just look at something that maybe something like that. I'm just trying to get a bit of patina on this. Oh, not patina, just a bit of wear on this. Maybe I'll use one of my favorites, which is the fractal sum. Gonna bring this home. I'm going to change the colors on this as well. So what I can do is I can go in and right click, and I'm going to add on this a filter. Let's work on the color channel. On the filter, I'm going to go in and put a, where are you, gradient. If I can find it. There you go. So again, I can get some other colors on this. I'm just getting these from, again, just some other images that I've got on my other screen. Take some of these. Let's just play around with these. So I'm just adding a bit of color variation to this. With a gradient. Okay. Okay, I'm just not liking this color here. Maybe something like that. That's just adding over there. If we need to, I can always just go to the base color and fade that out a little bit. So I'm just starting to add variation to this more than anything else. Can I just go back to this? Play around with some of these. Let me just take this one on. Yeah, something a bit more like that. Okay. Keep on building up. I'm going to put some darker spots on this. So again, I'm just still working on my color. Maybe something like that. Let me just try inverting. No, I'll leave it that. If I set this to something like a multiply, I can play around with the scaling on this. And if we need to again, we can just try that on triplanar. And actually, I think I prefer that on UV projection. Okay. Okay, again, just to add a bit of variation to this. And what we can also do with this as well, if we just take this back up, I can add a level to this. Just go into my levels control, make sure I'm on base color. And I can just bring this out this way as well. And actually, this is kind of how I prefer to work. Get a bit more control over these elements. Okay. Let's call this darker spots. Again, create a new one. Again, just look for something that's interesting on this. I may have a bit too much white in. Put something like an overlay on that. Or maybe a linear dodge. Oops. And again, if I need to, I can go in and add levels to this. Still on my base color. Let's just bring... Okay, so it's quite subtle, but it's just adding a little bit of surface detail to that. And that'll do for the purpose of this. Okay, so I've got my wood. What I'm going to do with this, I'm going to create a folder. Let's call this wood. I'm going to grab all of my layers that are to do with the wood. So let's grab all of these and drag those into the folder. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a mask with color selection. And down here, I'm just going to click on this pick color and then just click on the grey, and that's going to put that over the wood itself. It's better to do that on a folder, otherwise I would have to do that on all of the individual layers, and that gets to be quite a pain. So still within here, let me just name this to spots. Okay. I'm going to add another fill. I'm just going to my lights, but yeah, just checking to switch off all the other channels. So now I'm going to deal with the roughness on this. So I'm just going to go in and just get my roughness on there. And I want to break this up quite a bit. So I don't want this overly shiny. Again, I'm just starting off with a grunge map. Maybe something like this. Let's have a look. It's quite nice. The best way to be able to see this, if I press C, go through my different channels, and that's my roughness channel there. And that's okay. I find that I'm getting it a bit too shiny in some of these areas. Black is kind of the shinier areas, white is completely rough. So again, what I can do with this is just add another levels onto this. And this time I'm going to change this over to my roughness. And I can always just take down the black a little bit if needs be. And bring up the white a little bit. So we've just got a variation in there. Okay, let's just look at the scale. It's okay. Press M on the keyboard and that's going to go back. And there we go. So without that, I have a very shiny barrel. With this on, we're just taking that shine away from there, but still having it in certain places. This gives a more natural look to this. So let's call this roughness. Okay. And I think for now, done with that barrel. Got the wood there. You could go in as well, and sometimes what I may do is just go in and let's just do the fill there. Let's grab. Let me just switch this off for a second on this fill there. It's going to go in and grab a color. Going to grab one of these lighter colors. Maybe even make it a bit lighter. And take the height down a little bit. Take the roughness down a little bit. Keep the metallic at 0. In fact, I can switch the metallic off. And then what I could do is if I go in, switch this back on. If I go into this and add a black mask. On the mask, I can just go in and let's just take a brush. Take something like a dirt brush, and if I go into the alpha, it's going to set the alpha to something like one of these brush spots. It's going to look at my brush settings. Okay, take the flow down. And if you want to, you can just kind of put in splodges on there. But because I've got the height on there as well, the nice thing about this, maybe a bit too big. Let me just take this brush size down. Okay, because I've got the height on there, just to go back to the material, make this even more apparent. Make sure I'm on my color. So if I bring that down, what I can do is create just little indentations in certain places. These could be notches or other things. So I'm just painting those in. Put those in certain places there. Turn that around. So I can just add a bit of wear and tear that way as well. Okay, I could always use different alphas on this. To create some scratches and things on there. Just rotate. Oops. It's just doing this because I have some randomness on the brush itself. I go into my brush settings for this. Click on this. It's because I have this position jitter and this angle jitter on here as well. If I take all these down, I can just control that individually. So then anywhere I paint is going to be what I do on there. Okay, so you can just go in and add some finer detail on there as well. But I'd leave it like that for now. It's useful to be able to do that on a fill layer and just mask it out and then just be able to paint in those areas, especially with a bit of a height on that. So let's work on the bands. So our wood is sort of an oak wood. I'm going to start off with these as steel. So let me go in. I'm going to create another fill layer. Let's just set a base for this. So I'm going to go in and just set, and again, excuse me while I go into my other monitor. So my other monitor, I just have some pictures of steel. Let me just bring this over, you can see. So I've got different steel examples, and I want this kind of rusted steel, but I'm just getting some base colors from this as well. So on my base color, I'm going to click on this, get my pipette, and go over and get a color from this. I'm going to set my roughness to be quite shiny. Make this metallic. Okay. I will obviously deal with the roughness separately. In fact, I may do that here, just on this. So let's just get procedural. Let's go in and maybe take black and white spots. Again, I can just press C and look at the roughness channel there. Press M. And I may just go in with this and add a levels to this. Let's just put this on the roughness, and let's bring this down a little bit. Let's bring this up a little bit. Okay. I'm not using any other procedurals on this, so I can up the UV scale on this a little bit because it's going across the whole thing. If I was using other procedurals on the base color or anywhere else, I'd probably do the roughness as a separate layer, just to get a bit more control over it. But okay, something that might do. And what I'm also going to do is I will go in, add another fill layer. This I'm just going to have as height information, and I will go into my procedurals again. Maybe get something like a dirt map. Just bring this into my height. Let's bring the UV scale of this up. Let's have a bit of texture on this. And obviously way too strong right now. And I'm not sure, we just have a look, see if there's anything better. Let's just try this one. Now I'm getting some tiling in that. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this, let's just name this. Let's call this have this as height information. I'm going to go into my, in fact I can do a levels on this as well. And the levels, this time I want to choose the height. And I want to make this a lot more subtle. Bring these a lot closer together. Just so it's giving us this subtle pattern in there. Okay. That's all I'm really looking for. Again, if needs be, I could always go into the height and just fade that out a little bit if I wanted to. Just make that a bit more subtle there as well. Well, that's okay. Okay. And as with the wood, I'm going to create a folder for this. Let's call this steel. Let's grab my steel materials in there. And with this, again, right click and add mask with color selection. And then just click on this. And then we just have that in that place. Okay. Something like that. Obviously, I don't want to leave it like that. I want to put a bit of rust on this. So I can go in and still within this steel folder, I'm going to add a fill layer. So let me just give this the base. I'll take the roughness down. Keep the metallic at 0. Maybe a little bit. The color, I'm going to go in. And again, I'm just going to grab a color from somewhere else. Okay. Just have a look at this. I may just bring a bit more orange into this. Okay. Call this rust base. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to build this up. So let's go in and let's add a fill layer onto this. It's going to go into my color. And I'm going to start adding more grunge maps and bits and bobs. There is, where is it? The oxidized. Maybe that one actually. Again, let's just up the scale of this. And me put this on triplanar projection. I think that may work a little bit better. And if we just go in, I'm going to set this to maybe something like overlay. Oops. Let me just click this onto. I think it's set to linear dodge. On the higher map, I'm actually going to set this to my base color. Always make sure you're on the right channel. And let's set this to maybe an overlay. Okay, just to do something like that. Okay. Let's maybe add another one on there, just to give it even more coloration. So again, just on my base color. There is something, where are you? I'll just try Ox, no. There we have one called Grunge Rust Fine, actually. Let's do that one. Have the height on that. Again, if I go into this on my base color and just add, say, an overlay again. And again, maybe just go into my UV scale and just up this a little bit. So we get something like that. Okay. And I think what I'm also going to do this. Call it variation. If I could spell. I might put a bit of height information on this as well. Let's do another layer. Let's just get the height. And again, as with this, let's add a levels, set this to the height. Just wait while it saves. So we've got a bit of texture on there. I'm going to my height and I can just bring that down a little bit. Okay, so we can have something like that. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in so all these rust sections. Let me just put this rust. I'm going to create another folder. Call this rust. And I can have nested folders. I'm going to grab these and let's drag this into here. So that's my rust now. So now I can go in and add a black mask on that. And then we can go in and add a generator onto the mask. We could do a number of things. Could just add something like a metallic one. A bit of edge damage on there. Start bringing that in a little bit if needs be. Okay. But what I'm actually going to do is, let me just take this off. Let's add another generator. I'm going to go in and add a mask editor or even a mask builder. Do a mask editor. So on this, this gives us all the things we can work with. So we have our maps already plugged in. So I can start doing things like bringing the curvature up. Let's add maybe a world space normal into this, so I can start adding a bit of grunge onto there. Positional gradient is just bringing it in certain places. What I'll do is I'll just play around with the balance on that overall. Okay, and then I'm going to plug some procedurals into these texture inputs as well. So let's go down. maybe grab something like this. And then we can go into the texture and we can start adding that in to give this a bit of a breakdown. And if we go into the options for this, again, I can kind of go in and scale this if necessary, if needed. And let's bring down the contrast, and maybe go with something like that. Just looking at how long this tutorial's gone on. So I would play with it a lot more. We can also bring in the texture too, and add more variation into that as well. So in fact, let's just do that. Let's go in and maybe add something a bit smaller onto this secondary texture, and we can bring again just onto this. Let's go into the texture 2, and I can do similar kind of things. I can play around with the scale, play around with the brightness and everything else. Okay, so you can do quite a lot on that. We can actually play around with that a lot more. So I'll end this tutorial here. And what I'll do when I come back is just add a few more things to this.